Good evening and welcome to another episode of Band Stripped. Our guest tonight is Steve Umculo. Steve is a singer-songwriter. He's been around the world, but now he's back in South Africa making great music, and we're going to unpack his story tonight on Band Stripped. And to the Hot 91.9 audience, to introduce you, welcome to Hot 91.9.
Thank you very much.
I see you brought a guest with you.
I have indeed, yes.
Who is she?
Her name is Kiruna Lind, and she's going to be helping me sing a song today.
It's a small world because I do know her, and I remember as just past the toddler stage, and I've seen her grow up. Welcome, Kiruna.
Thank you for having us.
Kiruna, for the audience out there, is a very talented actress and singer too, so Steve is in good company tonight as he brings us his story. Steve, I've got so many questions for you because, when you read an artist's biography, it says a lot about where they've been and what they've done and what's shaped them. So, and I noticed that you were in Spain and you spent some time in other parts of the world.
Yeah, 100%.
Honing your craft, right?
Yeah.
What would you say was the main ingredient that has shaped your identity as a musician?
Oh, that's interesting. I think the main ingredient, to be honest, was missing home.
Yeah.
There is a certain feeling about Africa that one can't really pinpoint when they're away.
It's not the heat.
It's a part of it. I think it is actually truly a part of it. You know what I mean? I mean, like a lot of musical customs come out of like cultural practices, and I think the heat has a lot to do with that. Anyways, that's a completely different discussion. but I think the thing that drove me to create music, the music that I do, is a longing for Africa. It's something that is just so precious to me. It is a place that gives me purpose, belonging, and where I like to call home. So anything associated with Africa, including the musical practices, was something that I missed dearly when I was overseas.
And before you traveled, did you have the same feeling? I mean, in terms of what inspired you to write before you traveled?
Right. I mean, it's a bit of a long story, so I'll just try and skim over it super quick.
We like long stories. I mean, I don't mind them.
Oh, mate, well, then we're going to be here for hours. No, but before heading over to Spain, which is where I really honed in on the singer-songwriter thing.
Yeah.
I worked as a drummer on cruise ships for a while, and I traveled around, met a lot of cool people, and it was a vibe. I played a lot of music, not necessarily music that I loved, but it was a gig, it paid, and and I
like what type of music that you didn't love? I mean,
mate, I don't want to offend anybody out there. You're bringing back PTSD, my man.
On a ship, that's going to play, right?
Oh yes, but not a good version, because that's a great song. That really, really is a great song. And look, Fly Me to the Moon is fantastic. Yeah. Just not when you're playing it 4 times a week, and like super lame versions of it either. You know what I mean? It's cool. It was a cool gig though. So, but it did teach me that I really longed to do something original. Yeah. And I longed to do something that was innately me.
Yeah, I picked up in your music so far, and what I've heard so far, there's a rootedness to the way you write.
Yeah.
So it does correlate with what you just said now.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's very much apparent in the songs that I've heard. How many songs have you written so far?
To date, approximately 35 or so.
And building, obviously.
And building, yeah. And I mean, that's full completed songs. So once I've got an idea, I mean, the ideas thing, I don't like to really count it as a song, even if it's just like a verse or a chorus or something, because it has potential to still grow. Once I feel the song is a full package, then I'll be like, okay, cool. That's another song in the bank kind of thing, you know.
Yeah. Are you planning to write something with Kiruna as well, or?
We have written something together.
Oh, fantastic! What's it called?
It's called Just Kids.
Just Kids.
Yeah.
So that's something you haven't recorded yet, or are you due to record?
We have recorded. We finished about, what was it? About a month and a half ago?
Yeah. Like that, yeah.
Oh, very nice. So that's a coming soon, under the coming soon banner. That's definitely on there.
Yeah,
right?
It was actually last week, Friday is when I sent it off for mixing. So we should get that back in a couple of weeks' time.
Fantastic. And did you find that, I mean, playing abroad and playing in these gigs abroad, how has it shaped your craft as a musician? Has it made you a better musician, you think?
It has. I mean, as far as actually gigging overseas is concerned, The thing that it taught me more than anything is just more how to be a performer and try and engage with people, especially in Spain, because I couldn't speak English on stage.
Right.
I could only speak Spanish, and that was really, really difficult at first. But you sort of realize that, like, people are just stoked to have someone to entertain them. And if they just are true to themselves, then they're just stoked. It doesn't matter who it is up there. If they're just like an authentic person and they just go up there and they just say, I'm not really good at Spanish, but I think these songs are okay. Then they're pretty stoked to have someone up there.
Once the music starts, everyone just goes.
Exactly, yeah.
It's all about notes and rhythm and everything else. Now bless you. That has just gone out on radio, and all of Joburg North says bless you.
Yes, yeah. Simultaneously. 1, 2, 3, bless you. Yeah.
Now you've chosen, you're going to be playing 3 songs for us today. What is the first song?
I would like to do mine and Karina's song, Just Kids.
Oh, nice. So we actually are going to get that.
Yeah.
Now, what is the song about? What was the narrative line behind the song?
So this is an interesting one for me, for us, just because I'm currently producing an album, my first album, which is super exciting. And I went into this year deciding that this year was the year of the album. I wanted an album. So I'm a firm believer in overwriting. So I went through a process of writing a song a day, or at least getting an idea a day, for about 50 days back to back.
Yeah.
So by the end of it, I had a collection of ideas that I could make into songs, and then I'd have a collection of songs I could make into an album.
Yeah.
So I've taken 25 ideas from the 50, created them into songs, made them into songs, and then I've selected 12 of those songs to go on the album. One of which was Just Kids, but I decided that I needed a little bit of help on the track itself.
Yeah.
So the idea behind Just Kids initially was sort of this. It was supposed to be a romantic song by nature, but I had this idea that of being in a couple and this, but one of the people in the couple have more of a relationship with their cell phone than they do with. With you, kind of thing. It was like sort of this, like a sort of, But then I took it, and Karina had a bit of a different spin on it, and we actually just transformed it.
She would, yeah.
Yes, 100%. And, what do you mean? Sorry, it's beautiful. No, and I really, really enjoyed what she did with it. She had this nostalgic take on it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to dive into that at all about your method of writing.
This is kind of like the first time that I've written something that's been kind of like put out there.
Yeah.
The first time Steve played the song to me, I was like, oh, I can see what you're doing, but I don't really hear it like that or feel it like that, and then it had an incredible kind of like Steve said, nostalgia and childlike wonderment to it. So that's kind of where I took it with my little input in the song.
But it's an interesting process for songwriter, because I find as a writer, I love working with other artists because I do get other perspectives in terms of my own music, and it pushes your creative boundaries a little bit more and your perspective of everything. Well, that's very exciting. Now, the audience, I'm sure out there, their mouths are watering and everyone's very excited. We've got them warmed up. This is Steve Umculo and Karina Lindeva with a track from Steve's forthcoming album. It's called Just Kids, right here on Hot.
Color fades from your stare as the life that lies behind your eyes is stolen by a blinding light that will never care if you're there. Well, I care. I don't wanna feel alone. So I'll dream about a home where we are just kids staring up at the stars. Innocent without light to blind our hearts. Be in this world with me, is that too much to ask? Is it me living in the past? Or did we forget who we are?
Photographs stained with time and laughter
remembered in the freedom of togetherness. I take comfort in what's known, in our love that swings in roundabouts. Childlike.
I don't wanna feel alone. Ooh, so I'll dream about a home where we are just kids staring up at the stars, innocent without light to blind our hearts. Be in this world with me, is that too much to ask? Is it me living in the past? Or did we forget who we are? Come home. Come home. Come home. And we'll be two kids getting lost in our hearts. With a kiss, you'll take me right back to the start. Just kids staring up at the stars, innocent without light to blind our hearts. I'm here and you're with me, and that is all I ask.
Can we keep living in the past?
Let's dream to be more than we are.
Welcome back to Band Stripped, and that was Steve Umculo's first track called Just Kids with his special guest tonight, Karuna Lindeva, on vocals as well. Steve, I'm very curious about your writing process. Now, different musicians write in different ways. You write mainly on guitar, I would imagine.
Yeah. Probably
as opposed to drums.
Yeah, well, you say that, mate, but there is beauty in groove. That's like I think.
Fair play.
Yeah. I think initially my writing style did rely a lot on my affinity toward rhythm.
Yeah.
Now it's there's an affinity toward sort of more harmonic styles, as you say, on guitar, and I write a bit on piano.
Yeah.
But initially, like there's a lot of beautiful nuances that come from drum grooves that you can really draw on in order to start the writing process.
Sting was a guy who wrote a lot on bass.
Of course, yeah.
And it created and defined the sound for the Police for a decade.
100%, yeah.
Do you find that you're putting together chord sequences first, or are you're coming up with melodies and ideas first?
It's a mixture, and it depends on who I'm writing with.
Yeah.
I'm also a firm believer in, as you said earlier, that if you have someone else there, it does just put things into perspective. It helps to just give you a different perspective, should I say, rather. And that kind of makes the process easier. So if I'm writing with someone who's predominantly a lyricist, we will generally start with, okay, I have this idea behind a song, and I want to put it to chords, and then I'll play some chords, maybe give him a bit of a melody to work with, or her a melody to work with, and we'll take it from there, you know. But if I'm writing with someone who is more harmonically based, then we'll write from a chord sequence first.
You try to find your cadence with the artist, the specific artist that you're working with.
Yeah, of course.
Do you find lyrics are quite an easy thing for you to create?
I have a love-hate relationship with lyrics.
Oh, really?
I really do, mate. I think it's a weird thing for me because they're very, very particular moments. Like they call it flow in psychology, where you get into a space where literally time is irrelevant. Yeah. It becomes this. You can sit down and write lyrics, feel like it's been 5 minutes, but it's been 3 hours, kind of thing.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And to get
I
into
know all about that.
Yeah,
Man.
yeah. It's a massive.
I don't have that issue, by the way. Like when I find it quite easy to write.
Really?
I'm
Are you
incredibly
sort of the other way
lucid,
around?
and it just always comes out.
Right. I mean, that's amazing. And
it's a mental process.
Exactly. And it's sort of these barriers that are set up in your mind, I think, that you have to overcome it. For some people, it's a little bit easier. I think for Karuna, you with Just Kids, you got there pretty quickly because I was sitting down and I just said, just write down the first thing that comes to your mind.
And it was Chewbacca.
Yeah, it was actually.
Yeah.
That was the first thing that always comes to my mind. Chewbacca.
It should, yeah.
So now I know the password to my computer. But anyway, that's
Chewbacca 1. Yeah.
So Karuna, when you were writing, how do you find the process in terms of your lyrical setup? Do you find it like quite an easy thing to express yourself lyrically?
I think it kind of depends on where I am.
Yeah. Physically or emotionally?
Both, actually. When you spend a lot of time in hotel rooms, like you can find yourself very uninspired for a lot of the time.
That's fair, yeah.
And sometimes it just takes one thing to kind of, and you go, and it just comes out super easily, and it's like, it's clever, or it's impactful. But it sometimes does help to have parameters. So like an ideal already set out for you. Like for Just Kids.
You got a framework set up.
Yeah, so it was relatively easy for me to go, oh, this and this, and this kind of relates to that, and, what's romantic or what's, nostalgic. And like that came quite easily. Whereas sometimes I'm like, that's cheesy, that's awful, I hate this, and then I stop.
But I think it's also it's getting to that the point where you're in flow, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of the time you start to write, and then you're like, oh, I hate that, and then all of a sudden stuff that you actually like starts to come out, you know what I mean? It's I think it's part of the process. Getting stuff that you don't necessarily like initially out onto paper is just a part of the process to get to the point that you are writing something that you actually really enjoy. You know?
So have you guys ever heard of a band called Digby and the Lullaby?
Ooh, actually, why does that ring a bell?
So if you haven't, and this is my advice to both of you for tonight, is go and check out Digby and the Lullaby. They're a South African band. It's male and female vocal.
All right.
It's a duo, a duet, and it's unbelievable. And I think you'll find many points that you can relate to in terms of how they craft and write their songs together.
Okay, we'll check them out. Sure.
Also male, female. It's a nice balance.
Cool.
What do you love to see, or what do you love most about seeing your creations come to life? When you perform a song, when you your song on the radio, what do you love most about that?
People singing along, man. It's because innately music is supposed to be communal.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be shared. That's the original purpose of music, is that it draws on community, right?
Yeah.
So if you have even if it's one person in the crowd who knows.
With me, it's normally one person in the crowd because they're the only person in the crowd, and normally it's me mum.
Yeah, I was about to say my mum. Yeah, 100%.
And she knows the words.
No, I mean, like it is also, I mean, like, because obviously the people who love you the most are going to be the ones that latch onto your music initially, obviously, you know what I mean? And like, even if it is just them, there's this moment where you're singing a lyric and it's, for some reason, it's resonated with them. You can't, like, you even if they explain it to you, will never know the original moment where it started resonating with them and why it started to resonate with them. Even if they have a pretty clear-cut idea of why it resonates with them. You'll but you can almost feel it when they sing it back to you and you're singing it simultaneously.
That's a great thing, because it's something that came out of nothing. It came out from your brain and everything that you made of.
Yeah,
stardust that you made of. What is your next song that you're going to be playing for us in Hot?
I'm going to play Pretty Baby.
Pretty Baby. Now, this song was one of the first songs you actually released, wasn't it?
It's been, yes. I mean, out of the 35 odd songs that I have now.
And it made quite an impact from what I can pick up too.
I think the story has made an impact, and therefore people latch onto the song because it has a story behind it.
Who is Pretty Baby?
Well, so when I was living in Nashville in 2017, I was doing an internship at a record label in 2017 in Nashville. And
which record label?
That was South by Sea Records. They were one of the indie pioneers in Nashville at the time. Unfortunately, I don't think they managed to really sustain themselves on indie music alone in Nashville because it's predominantly country. So they've since let go of the division that I was working for, the marketing team, but they've kept their actual studio itself, and they hire out the studio.
I actually worked on a label, a Nashville-based label, Capital Nashville.
No way, seriously?
Many years ago.
That's awesome.
And
were you in Nashville itself?
No, I was here. So I released all the Nashville artists in South Africa. So at the time, Garth Brooks, Deanna Carter,
awesome,
and a couple others were just launching.
I mean, it's actually okay. Well, then I suppose you are partly responsible for why people actually love country music in this country.
Partly, but I think it's always been part of our culture.
Yes, sure.
I think the Afrikaans music market and the English music markets always had stars like Lance James, for example, a very good example of somebody who's now 80 odd, just released a new album.
Yeah, that's crazy.
As an example.
Yeah, and doing relatively well.
Yeah.
Being honest,
So Pretty Baby sort of shaped up From what? From Nashville, and then?
And while I was living in Nashville, the Las Vegas shootings happened.
I see.
Yeah,
okay.
so it was born out of a pretty morbid story. Well, actually, no. There's hope toward the end.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. But so it was just this sense of like national mourning that was going on in America that I think affected me. And I was reading news articles. Just a bit of Afrikaans in there for you guys. I was reading news articles about the Vegas shootings, and there was one article in particular that resonated with me. There was a couple that went to go see the Jason Aldean concerts in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And basically, long story short, the lights go down, the sound goes down, and they hear gunshots. The husband looks to the floor on his right-hand side and sees his wife with a bullet hole in her head.
Yeah.
Rushes her to hospital. She's obviously in ICU. It's pretty chaotic. And he eventually finds where she's been taken to, operated on her, managed to get the fragments of the assault rifle bullet that was in her head out of her brain. And she was in a coma. So this was about, and I read this article while she was in a coma, and I wrote this song, Pretty Baby, based on, respectfully so, what I thought maybe the husband was dealing with. Yeah. And I mean, not that I can even begin to fathom what must have been going on in this guy's head, but it was a pretty in-depth article about this couple. So I wrote the song. I moved out of Nashville. I moved back here.
Yeah.
I carried on. I released my EP and blah 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 blah. And then only recently I recorded and released Pretty Baby about a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
And I got a message on Instagram while I was promoting it from a friend of mine who currently lives in the States, and she said, Steve, I read the same article and she survived. And I said, what? She survived. And she said, yeah, no, there's a follow-up article. And I looked at the time, but I think it was just there was so much news coming in about her that I couldn't find the follow-up story. So
the closure of that story,
exactly,
particularly.
Yeah. So she sent me the article of the closure, and yeah, she survived. She's currently in recovery, and
2 years, so like 2 years later now. Right?
Yeah, it's this week will be 2 years almost to the day that she initially got shot, and she's still in recovery, which is but she survived. Her name's Giovanna. If anybody wants to check.
Well, you've captured a moment in time. Like, I mean, I think many writers do. It's observational writing,
exactly,
where you're picking up a moment in time in a particular place and going towards it. It makes the song intriguing. Now that the audience out there's heard the story behind the song, there's a very specific intent and understanding, and you'll be amazed at how many people, particularly in this country, may be able to relate to that particular story.
I mean, yeah, tragedy. It's and I would never, wish any tragedy like that to befall upon anybody, obviously. But yeah, I mean, if it helps anybody who's suffered a loss through violence, then at least I have that.
Thank you for that, Steve.
No, of course.
And this is our second song on Bandstrip with Steve Umculo, and it's called Pretty Baby, written in Nashville, right?
In Nashville.
Right, John Hot.
Oh, pretty baby, don't you fall asleep. Those memories are ours to keep. I promise you I'll stay by your side. Those piercing sounds will soon subside. Whoa, 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 whoa. And oh, pretty baby, don't you go too far. This wretched world has left its scar. And please, pretty baby, stay present and calm. The chaos is gone. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Welcome back to Band Stripped on this beautiful, beautiful Sunday night. We're well into October. When I say well in, 6 days in, that's well in for me. And we're back. We're back live in the studio with Steve Umculo and Karuna Lindeva. I have a question for both of you. Who are the artists that each of you admire the most? Starting with you, Karuna.
No pressure.
Oh, goodness.
And when I say artists, I mean, I don't specifically mean musicians in your case, as a theatre performer also. So,
Well, I think since music has always been such a fundamental part of who I am, it's kind of when I think of artists, I think of musicians.
Yeah. Like Sting.
I grew up listening to Sting.
Yeah.
I grew up listening to quite an array of different music,
Yeah,
which I
yeah.
think which is what makes my music taste so eclectic.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. Which
Well,
is
both
why-
your parents, I mean, both had incredibly a very diverse range of taste, from classical to traditional to popular music. It was a wide range of things.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
completely.
Yeah.
So I think I've been very fortunate in that respect, that it's kind of that I love listening to most things. I will admit that my head is in the sand when it comes to a lot of popular music nowadays.
Yeah.
So I tend to gravitate towards jazz and neo soul and funk and R&B.
Yeah.
A lot of indie. But I have to say, like, my two favorite musicians at the moment
Yeah.
are Dodie. She's a musician based in the UK. She
Right.
is unbelievable. Her lyrics are just... she's-
Dodie.
Dodie, yeah.
Okay, got you.
Incredible storyteller.
No relation to Dido, obviously.
No.
Her daughter, she just flipped it around.
No, Dodie, and then there's this absolutely phenomenal woman that came up on my Spotify a couple of weeks ago named Eloise.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable.
That's
She's
a great
so
thing about
good.
Spotify and those types of apps now, with the predictive, it's picking up certain
Yeah.
rhythms and patterns that you may or may not like.
Yeah.
But you end up discovering incredible artists.
Yeah.
through that.
So incredible,
100%.
and it's almost like it's in tune with exactly what you need to hear that day.
It finds your
Sometimes
cadence.
you're like, okay,
Right.
Spotify, you're in my feels.
Yeah,
Can we stop?
Hitting them hard, yeah.
And on your side, Steve, who are the artists that you admire? I could have tried to guess them. I'm not going to guess them.
Okay, fair enough.
But when I listened to music, I thought, okay, I can hear influences from certain things, and
Yeah.
I'll tell you afterwards. But
Okay, cool. So when I created this, I'm just going to specifically speak from like this project's perspective,
Yeah.
and what sort of influenced me to create this project. When I was in Spain, I was listening to a lot of Usima Tlasela, which was
Okay.
It was like, it was just the thing that I just started resonating with, man. I mean, he has since moved over to London, and he's done a lot of shows in the States, but he he just always kept like a fundamental core of Africa about him, like wherever he went, which I really respected. So I listened to a lot of that, and I listened to a lot of Beatenberg when I initially created this project. So
So
that
homegrown stuff that you were sitting on the other side listening to.
funnily enough, and it took like that step to make me reflect back on like the beauty that is South African music.
And did you pick up anything that was local? I mean, when I say local in Spain, it's interesting because a lot of Spanish popular music is made up of Mexican music.
Yes.
Or artists from Mexico, like Maná,
Right.
Paulina
Yeah.
Rubio.
Yeah.
Did you pick up any of that stuff?
I did, but so I also played a fair amount of like I was in a flamenco ensemble at some
Yeah.
point. So there was a lot of
A flamenco ensemble.
I know. It was, they actually
That
called
is
it
a
the
whole story on its own.
yeah, it's a whole, yeah. We need another 30-minute segment for that, my man. But so there are a lot of rhythms that tie in between Spanish music and African music.
Yeah, that's
And,
what I felt. When I
Yeah,
was there.
so I studied that a lot, man. I listened to a lot of it when I was over there. I covered a couple of Spanish songs in Spanish, which was the biggest hurdle to overcome.
Yeah.
To sort of relate to the audience. And what just naturally started happening was my songwriting took a bit of a different turn in that certain Spanish like flamenco rhythm started to influence what I was writing, as well as like I was checking out stuff from Brazil, like batucada and stuff, which is more of the rhythmic.
And it's got also flamenco, but also like a Portuguese influence
Massive,
in that particular music.
So all fairly rhythmical stuff, So I was as far as groove is concerned, I was influenced a lot by both music from home as well as local music. When
It's like
I
a
was
big
in Spain.
stew. All of that was just stewing up inside Steve.
Yeah, exactly. And then as far as a songwriting perspective is concerned, I always have loved the direction, like the simplicity of like the Lumineers and Mumford and Sons. It's very 4-chord based music that just has beautiful embellishments on melodies that I've always resonated with. So from a songwriting perspective, that's where...
And it's very rhythm-driven also in terms of guitar rhythm.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And how that's coupled with just a simple 4-on-the-floor kick drum. It's something that's
This
always
is like
resonated.
music porn when you start talking chord structures, rhythmic structures.
Can go on and on, my man, I promise you.
Interesting that when I was in Spain, I picked up these artists. I mean, Maná had a song called Labios Compartidos, and I actually started learning Spanish through music, actually.
No way.
And I think Paulino Rubio, there's a song called Ni una sola palabra.
Sí.
And I started working out what all these things meant, and I started actually putting together that Spanish syllabically is very similar to English in terms of how everything fits in. So you could easily convert a song from English to Spanish.
It quite, I mean, and like, I know it's super cheeseball, but Enrique Iglesias, it's phenomenal to see how he takes, well, I mean, I'm sure he has a whole flippin' array of songwriters that he works with. But the Spanish versions and the English versions are almost directly translated, but fit perfectly into...
I think Roxette did that as well. They released an album called Baladas in Espanol.
Really? I actually didn't know that.
And it's basically all their big hits, all their ballads
I must check
in
that
Spanish.
Out. No ways.
I told you, Steve, you'll learn a lot on the show.
Man, yeah.
It's amazing. It'll change your life.
Every day's a school day with you. Yeah, I'll tell you that much.
Now, what would you like to... I mean, just casting your eyes or casting your imagination ahead 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
What would you like to achieve as a musician?
As a musician,
Yeah.
okay, that's interesting. I suppose I love to create. I love to create and produce. So my album, I like that's the central focus right now. Create the album, and get it out and share. I would personally, I am doing music full time right now.
Yeah.
But as far as like a very specific goal is concerned, to be able to feed and house myself just on original music, that would be awesome. I mean, right now I'm coupling both.
So it can be a full-time
original
career.
Yeah, like original music as a full-time career.
As
like music
opposed
right
to-
now
yeah, okay.
is a full-time career, but it's coupled
Covers
with
of golf from Ipanema.
Exactly. But
It's not that.
yeah,
Obviously.
exactly. I'm actually I'm working on 10 different versions of Girl from Ipanema. Yeah, death metal. That's the most interesting one.
Yeah.
So, but as far as like a career is concerned, so Kiruna and I are also currently working on her album, which I'm going to help produce.
Tell me more about that. So you're going to be producing that in Karuna. You're writing most of the music, or you're co-writing some?
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of because I'm a newbie.
Yeah,
you know, and
fresh into the world.
Yeah, it's kind of
songwriting.
Yeah, and I've kind of I am masterful in self-deprecation.
Yeah.
It's like
You got that? West.
it's been quite just taking that step of even sharing my music with Steve has been like I think an achievement in itself.
Yeah.
I respect his opinion and all the musicians that I have around me. Kind of, I know that it will not just be me, like creating this. I think I'd come in with an idea and be like, "Help, please."
No, absolutely. Listen, I think that's one of the biggest challenges when you first start, is that all artists have this. It's we all face our vulnerabilities, isn't it? We feel vulnerable when you put a part of yourself out into the world, which is out of your hands for them to judge. You're thinking, will they accept it or will they not? And the best advice I can give you is not to worry about that.
You're right.
Is that do it because you love it, and whether they accept it or not is really out of your hands. And also know that the people that are most important. I mean, Steve is working with you because he believes in you, and that will be the primary reason. And I believe in you. So
there we go.
So I believe you would be able to do it. I think it's second nature to you. I've watched you grow up, so I think it'll be second nature for you, and it'll be as daunting as it may appear to be. It'll actually be easier than you think.
Yeah. And I think it's a matter of now. It's something I have been talking about for a long time, and the opportunity has finally presented itself to kind of give all my energy to it and focus on creating something that is mine. It's just time to just do it. You know? And sometimes, to quote Elizabeth Gilbert, done is better than good.
There we go.
And,
Fantastic.
you
Fantastic.
Can create and grow
I'm assuming
from
that people out there know who Elizabeth Gilbert is because
Eat, Pray, Love.
Eat, Pray, Love, and Big Magic.
There you
Big Magic
go.
is any creatives out
Bees.
there, you gotta read Big Magic, man.
Yep.
It's
So
amazing.
Steve, now take us to your third and final track for tonight.
Alrighty.
What are you entertaining with us with?
I'm going to entertain you with Answer, and
Answer.
Answer is my ode to Africa. When I was still in Spain,
Yeah.
it's a collection of philosophies that were just going on in my head that I wanted to get out on paper,
Yeah.
coupled with a African groove, essentially.
Yeah.
Is kind of like that's how it came about. I had a whole bunch of ideas in my head and I wrote them down on a piece of paper, and then I was like, okay, I kind of dig this groove behind it and I kind of dig these chords, and now it's just become sort of my party anthem that I play at the end of every set.
Ah,
that just gets
fantastic,
people
yeah.
singing along.
Which actually takes me back to the previous question I asked you about influences and artists that you admire, because when I first heard your music, and this is, I think, a more, let's say, a simplistic version of what I'm going to say, but there was a hint of Johnny Clegg in
Yes.
some of what I've heard.
Yeah.
And also because as a young boy, I listened to a lot of Johnny Clegg and I loved it. But Johnny came from a genuine place. He was genuinely African.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he completely embraced everything that was beautiful about African music and
Yeah.
fused it beautifully,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
created a sound that was unique
Yeah.
to the world and never actually been repeated until I heard strains of some of those things in your music.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
And
Yeah.
it was very authentic and very rooted, which goes back to what I said right at the start.
Right,
The
yeah.
music was very rooted.
Right, yeah.
I felt like that was, okay, I could say that was from home.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Johnny obviously has always been an influence for me.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting about music is the ongoing conversation. So essentially Johnny started the conversation, years back. He started the conversation of cultural blend.
Yeah.
And it was important to him. It was important to him to make sure that South Africans know that it's okay to cross boundaries. It's okay to blend cultures.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that is one of the most important conversations that has come out of South African music. And I think it's ongoing. So you'll hear throughout the years, and a lot of artists will reference back to Johnny in their music. So there's been like sort of this. A lot of tributaries that have come out of this initial Johnny River, if that metaphor makes
The
sense.
root of all things.
Exactly, and I think that a lot of those tributaries have influenced me directly, if that sort of makes sense. So
We're thankful for that because that's how we've got you here.
thanks, man. I appreciate that.
And this is our last and final track on this beautiful edition of Band Stripped with Steve Umculo, and this is his track called Answer.
Take it out on me, so we can settle all these scores. Please search for empathy to find the answers you look for, and just say what you mean. This clock's ticking and running and it won't stop coming. We could obey anarchy to repair these broken seams. Now, now, yeah. Change your plans, be free. You need to leap before you crawl, yeah. Grab a hold and jump with me. You need to leap to take control, yeah. And just say what you mean. This clock's ticking and running and it won't stop coming. We could obey anarchy to repair these broken seams. Now, whoa, now, yeah, I don't know if I for these broken seams. Oh yeah.
All right, Sven, are you ready? The time has come. It's going to be amazing. And the whole of Joburg are going to lose their minds. This is a matter of fact. Okay, here we go.
And I said, hey, hey.
Kieran, Sven, you got it?
And I said, hey.
We got one. Next one, Sven.
And I said, hey, hey.
Here we go.
And I said, woo. Oh yeah.
Okay, everything you got.
And I said, hey, hey. And I said,
It's beautiful.
now, jam, I'm ticking and I'm running and it won't stop coming. I'm ticking and I'm running and it won't stop coming. I don't wanna go, I don't wanna go, I don't wanna go home. Let's change it all, yeah. Jump with me, jump into spaces you don't know. We don't have to be alone, yeah. Now, ticking and I'm running and it won't stop coming. Now,
That was Sven on the backup vocals. Yeah.
Welcome back to Band Stripped. 3 beautiful songs from an incredible artist who is making his way and making waves in the South African music scene and hopefully the global music scene as well. Steve Umculo, thank you for being part of the show tonight. And Karuna, thank you for being our special guest with Steve tonight. Now, a very important question, and this is very important for our audience especially. Where do people find you?
All up on the interwebs.
Right.
So yeah. The
What are your handles?
All right. I mean, it's just fortunately Steve Umculo is a pretty far out name. So it'll just be SteveUmculo. That's all the
And that's on
handles.
Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on all the platforms, sort of because it's important to be, but Instagram is the one that I'm on all the time. And that's the one that.
And if people wanted to buy your music, all the platforms.
Yeah. I mean, if it, like just as far as streaming is concerned, Apple Music, Spotify,
Google.
all the rest of it. Yeah.
I did find it on Google Music as well.
Yes, yeah, it is up there. And then Kiruna, Instagram.
Yeah.
When you're not performing in a theater, Karuna, where can people see you perform?
Well,
Dubai.
Dubai. Yes.
And you're doing Phantom of the Opera there,
Yes,
aren't you?
yeah, I'm playing Meg Giry in Phantom
Fantastic.
of the Opera. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. I am back home next year, which is very exciting, and just kind of going to see where the year takes me. But you can find me on Instagram, even if I'm over the ocean.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
The whole world is connected like that now. Well, I think I can speak on behalf of the audience as well. We're very keen, Steve, to hear your album when it's out, and to also hear your album, Kiruna, when it's out, because we know that the two of you are making this together.
Yeah.
And don't forget, before you start that process, have a good listen to Digby and the Lullaby.
Yes.
It'll provide you with, I think, sufficient inspiration.
Yeah.
And you're most welcome for that advice.
Thank you so much. Thank
Offer
you.
these things as gifts, parting gifts.
Amazing.
Yes.
You are very generous. Generous.
Generous.
Yeah, that's
Thank you very much for being great stars on the show. That was Steve Umculo on Band Strip tonight on the SA Music Box with me, the Eskimo Writer. And we'll catch you again very soon with more amazing music.
Hot 91.9.
Playing the best old school and R&B.